my job is, in the next 15 minutes, to encapsulate what this team and a much broader team and many of you did over about a 1.5 year period to create this whole NameStorm project and implement it that led to LifePlan Community. So first, where did this all come from? Why did this come from? Why did this happen to begin with? And a lot of people, I'm going to explain how did we get to LifePlan Community, but a lot of questions have come along the way. Even, Alicia, I hope you pardon me for saying this, but even some questions that have been, not very many, why is Leading Age making us do this? Leading Age is not making you do this. Leading Age is responding to an initiative that has been pushed by members for years and years and years. And finally, a few years ago, Mather Lifeway stepped forward and said, this is something our field needs. Leading Age, would you please take a leadership role in coordinating this and making it happen? And thankfully, they accepted that challenge and moved forward. What came out of that starting point was something that was called Project NameStorm. And more than 100 communities, organizations nationwide participated in this. Quick show of hands. Any of your organizations, were you part of that NameStorm brainstorming process? A few, several along the way. Great. So thank you all for your help, because that's one of the key ideas that came out of here today is LifePlan Community is not a name that this group created, went in a room for a weekend somewhere and came away with. It's a name that came from you and from all the communities, and that's what we're going to talk about, how that happened. The first step was this NameStorm process, during which organizations got together, followed a predefined step-by-step approach to developing name options and words that are important. And the word cloud that came out of that, you can see several of the words that really rose to the top. Community, life, living, communities, active, lifestyle. Those words came up over and over and over. As a result of that NameStorm process, hundreds of names were submitted to Leading Age, at which time Leading Age formed a task force, beginning to pull together some of the team members up here to go through and sort through those names and begin to evaluate them against a number of criteria for what makes a good name, what would we want a new name or term to accomplish. And out of that process, top 10 names were identified that we wanted to move forward and test further. And that's when the research phase started. Because it's not important what we as a group think. What's really important is, how does the market respond? What do the names mean to them? What are the connotations that certain names have? So the first step was a survey process. We reached out to current residents, prospective residents, people who are on lead bases of communities, employees, staff, professionals, and purchase lists of the general population, as Steve and Sue have mentioned, so important. What is that next generation, that 2025 prospect? What do they think about this? And so surveys were sent out. We had more than 130 communities, probably, again, several of you in the room, participate in helping us distribute these surveys and get these results in. All in all, we got more than 4,000 responses, which leads to a very high degree of confidence in the findings that came out of it. It was just a tremendous response. And again, to all of you who were instrumental in supporting our team in that process, thank you. Some of the things, just to reinforce that some of the things Steve was saying, it wasn't just conjecture that, oh, we think people don't like CCRC. Even those people, the blue box on the right, even those people who are in our communities, our residents, or our prime target market today, that 75 up block, less than half of them found CCRC, Continuing Care Retirement Community, to have appeal. But when we look out into the future at that 2025 group, only 1 out of 4 people found any appeal in CCRC. When we looked at a variety of names and the need for names, again, on the far right, I'm just giving a quick summary of some of these key points. On the far right column, probably 2 to 2.5 times as many of that older group, the 75 up, felt that there was a need for a new name that focuses on more than just care. But again, when we look at the youngest group, it's like 5 times as many. 62% felt that there was a need for a new name. And you can see only a tiny sliver at the bottom that says, I don't think a new name is needed. So it just really reinforced the momentum for doing this. In fact, again, focusing on that younger group, 84%, 5 out of 6 people when given a choice of names, chose something other than continuing care retirement community. So very strong energy for a new name. Out of that survey process, we took those top 10 names and ranked them. Not necessarily 1 through 10, but we identified the 5 top names and then a 5 second tier of names. And we went to the second phase of the research process, which is focus group testing. We had more than 250 people participate in these groups nationwide. The task force members up here on stage, our organizations led and conducted these. Again, we reached out to residents and prospects and that younger market segment, made sure people were age, income, home value qualified, so we know that we're really talking to people who are in our market. We standardized everything so that wherever these were done across the country, we used the same approach, same questions. What we did was we focused more time on those top 5 choices, but we also gave exposure to the second tier of 5 just to make sure we weren't missing anything. And we found a lot of interesting things there. Some names that may have scored really well had some negative connotations that we may not have thought of. So it was really a very enlightening process. And so we'll let you hear some of their feedback to the term CCRC. How many of you, let's say, feel strongly that it's not a good name? Continuing care retirement community is not a good name for. All right, well, that's pretty much unanimous.
The first thing that comes across my mind is that is a place for the people who are retired, but they need actual physical medical care as opposed to just independent living to start out with.
That particular phrase to me connotes being aged, infirm, potentially, and I don't find that a real positive. I don't react well to it.
I find that each of the words as standalone are fine. I don't have a problem with it. If it's a step back and look at the whole thing, I feel a sense of dread.
Well, I think of more of a facility for a person needing more help with daily activities and with possibly medications and services and, more than just being able to live independently.
For me, care was one thing, but when I linked it with continuing care, then the connotation became, for me personally, more negative.
How so?
Loss of independence, declining health.
End of life.
Loss of autonomy. That's when we think of continuing care.
At 70, I'm thinking, I walked in, I thought, what a beautiful place this is, but I'm a long way from wanting to be with a bunch of other people my age. I want to be out in the world, and I think the care is a problem, the word care, maybe even the word continuing in that sense, because it all, to me, suggests a time in my life that I'm a long ways away from my home and may never reach. So, before I ever get there, I'm going to be thinking about alternatives, and I think the term continuing care does suggest people in wheelchairs.
I think people of our age want to have continuing care. That really is, no one would want to have that unless it's necessary.
There is a negative connotation when I'm very old or when I'm sick.
In the term?
The term, yes. I'm not that old yet.
I think care is the most negative of the terms, and it reflects having to be looked after.
Presumes you need
to
care.
Be a burden in a way. Care is a burden.
Well, care to me implies need, and I think with some individuals there's the feeling of come here and then you fold your hands and you're waited on and that's the end of it. I would like to get more of a feeling of continued living.
I mean, to me, continuing care is the same as a nursing home, effectively, to me. And it doesn't imply anything better or anything worse.
And believe it or not, that was just a small sampling of the kind of feedback we heard about continuing care retirement communities. We're going to show you how they respond to the life plan community in a few minutes, but wanted to share that. So again, the surveys, and one of the things I think we want to be sure we communicate is that we confirmed the assumptions during this. We gave a fair shot to continuing care retirement community that for people to respond positively, and they didn't. Next, we took it to the suits. Of course, if we're going to put a name out there, we need to know that it has trademark clearance. And we did run into some of the finalist names that were being used. I say that's really not surprising, because where did the names come from? They came from you all. They came from communities that have been exploring and doing this for years. So at the end of this whole process then, what rose to the top consistently across the board was Life Plan Community. And that's what we have suggested as the new name. Life shows that our communities are about so much more than care. They're about living life to the fullest. And Plan captures the unique safety net of care that our communities offer. Life Plan Community, again, it allows planning and living to merge. And what I'll say, to me, is as I've looked at this whole process, I don't see this name as, blazing a new trail, or, it's at the cutting edge. This is really following what you all have been doing in your communities for many years, coming up with new names. How many organizations can you think of that have rebranded in the last 5 years and included some variation of life or living in the name? Lifestream communities, life space communities, Mather, well, Lifeway's that's been around for a while. I could probably list 5 or 6 more off just right off the top of my head, and you all could probably list more than that. So this is really following the trail that you all have started blazing, and we're looking to help support the community, the whole field with. Life Plan Communities, so we thought it'd be interesting to show you how did Life Plan Communities score relative to CCRC. And in a lot of key criteria that we use to evaluate the names, it's easy to remember, makes me want to learn more, encourages people to imagine the possibilities, invites younger seniors to live in the community. Life Plan Community dramatically outscored CCRC in most of those categories. Did it win everywhere? No. CCRC won in a couple of categories. CCRC won in terms of about being old. And it won in terms of says that I need care. All right, you're supposed to get the ironic humor in that. No one is supposed to go home and say, well, Rob said that CCRC did outscore Life Plan Community. Yeah, but not in anything good. That was for our 65 and younger group. Same thing for the residents. The only thing that's interesting here for even for residents who live the CCRC name, and they understand that better than anybody, even there, in terms of easy to remember, Life Plan Community was a tie. So let's let you hear a little bit about how the group responded to our focus group respondents.
There's a plan there, and so and it's a community, so you'll have friends, and everybody does need a life plan.
Okay.
So I like the name a lot.
That word plan, I think, is so important. So many people say, and what is your plan? Like when they look at us with gray hair, and what are your plans?
I like the word community because it does give you the idea that this is going to be a friendly setting where you're going to make friends. And I guess the word plan too, because it does need to be a thought out kind of thing.
Thought, well, this is a place for individuals, and there will probably be activities there that you can partake of, and basically just a place where you can go and have a good time.
Okay, so in this phrase, life plan community, how many of you feel like you would be the one doing the planning?
Hopefully.
How many feel like somebody else would be coming up with this plan? Okay.
So who likes the term life plan?
Yes, I did.
Jean likes it.
I do too, very much.
What do you like about it?
It's more open to younger people to respond to it. There's the way they make their money plans, they plan all that.
So like the financial plan, you make a life plan?
It isn't limited to anything because they know that life goes on. They don't know how long. And, nobody likes to think about the end of life, but most sensible people do have some ideas about it, why they hold their money in certain ways and so on.
And so for this one,
I thought immediately decisions. Well, I'm still not gaga and I can make decisions. It implies that I'm still capable of, as an individual, to make decisions for myself. So I like the word plan.
How many consider yourselves to be?
But it does have a feeling of a larger encompassment to it.
okay.
you say life plan, that's several phases of living.
Do you think the name is catchy?
It's easier to remember than.
Yeah, it is easy to remember. It's simple. It's simple, 4-letter words. You can remember that.